Now, ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450 and 99.5 The Bus proudly present the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show. Over the next 90 minutes, we set the stage for today's Penn State football game. The Penn State Tailgate Show is sponsored by
W.R. Hickey Beer Distributor, the Dalton Group at Morgan Stanley, Big Valley Cabinets, Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships, First Citizens Community Bank, the Student Bookstore, Stalker Chevrolet, your Cigar Den and Monte Cristo Lounge, the Penn State All Sports Museum, Ben Franklin Technology Partners, Beer Billy's Beverage, Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center, Joel Confer Toyota and BMW, Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned, Center Care Inc., the Penn State Bookstore, Lion Country Kia, CSL Plasma, the Tavern Restaurant, Bobby Rahal Honda, Center County Recycling and Refuse Authority, BBCI Allen Mechanical and Electrical, and by Confer's Jewelers.
Now, here are your hosts, Zach Seyko and Jason Lord.
Penn State versus Purdue. The 2022 college football season is here. No more guesswork, no more waiting. It's all here. And the perfect music to open to. It is myself, Zach Seyko. Jason Lord is in studio. And so is Thomas Frank Carr.
Oh, I've missed this.
As a guest analyst.
Here. The excitement is here. Wait is over. It's about time we get some football. Here we go. Now it counts.
Yes, it does count. And Penn State is taking on Purdue, the third year in a row that they open up with a Big Ten opponent on the road.
Yeah.
11 of 12, last 12 years, period, on the road.
Yeah.
In
And
terms of Big Ten openers.
so to explain how we're doing the show this year, we are going to have a rotation with our broadcast team every single week. We take you all the way up to the network with Steve Jones, Jack Ham, Brian Tripp, every single game, home or away. We are going to be on site outside the Bryce Jordan Center, outside of Beaver Stadium, on site 3 hours before kickoff. But for the next 90 minutes, we take you through in-depth analysis about Penn State and its opponent, news that's relevant to the team, of course. We look through the historical perspective, which will be up first after we go through some general thoughts. We have Coach's Corner, where we hear from head coach James Franklin. Of course, we will preview what Purdue brings to the table. We have our injury report, prediction segment, where we actually welcome on a celebrity guest. And today it'll be Aeneas Hawkins, former Penn State defensive tackle, is going to join us live in studio. Aeneas is also going to be a part of our home game coverage, as well as a studio analyst, which is a great, and it's a privilege. Thomas Frank Carr, of course, is going to be our away studio analyst.
And
yes.
Aeneas is hilarious. If you've checked out his TikTok, his YouTube stuff, I am so excited to have him on the show. He's a funny dude. This is going to be a ton of fun.
Well, today he's going to help us pick winners and losers for not only Penn State, Purdue, but just some of the other big-name college football games over the course of today, tomorrow, and Saturday. For example, Ohio State and Notre Dame. Eager to see what his thoughts are on that game. And Pitt, West Virginia, that's included as well. We have keys for Penn State and Purdue to wrap up the show. And, of course, we look around the Big Ten, just getting a glance at the conference before we do send it over to the Learfield Network with Steve Jones, Jack Ham, and Brian Tripp. And we will do that for all 12 regular season games and hopefully a bowl game. I think playoff is far-fetched, but we'll start with the expectation that this should be a bowl team and have a 13-game schedule. But, gentlemen, it's great to have you in studio. This will be T. Frank for all of the away games that we have, all 5 of them here, starting with tonight. And Jason, you will rotate with Jamal Ellerby and Matt Bortner as well in our coverage. So a very extensive broadcast crew, a 3-person broadcast crew every year. And I do want to give a shout out to Mark Snyder, who led this show last year, was the number one. And did a fantastic job. Led pregame shows in the past, of course, for Penn State. But the knowledge, the wisdom, and everything that he passed on to me in just 13 broadcasts last year, I will never be able to thank him enough for.
Yeah, you've got some big shoes there. Mark Snyder's been the bedrock of this show since I started here a decade ago.
Yeah. You were in my position. Now I'm in your position and in Mark's position. So I have not only your shoes to fill, but also Mark's as well.
I want to get some glad handing out of the way before we get started. So as Zach just said, I used to work here. I used to do his job, and then I decided that was the hardest job I'd ever done, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So Zach is doing an exceptional job with ESPN Radio and with this show. Like, the reality is, people don't realize how hard it is to program a station, let alone a station that has thousands of live events. The flagship partner with Penn State athletics, not just Penn State football. I know this is the crown jewel. This is the best show that this radio station does, probably that this radio cluster does. This is an excellent show, and I'm happy to be a part of it. But what Zach does with this station and all the other sister stations, putting the games on air and bringing more fresh, lively content to your radio station, these are all visions, and these are all things that I had hoped to do. And he's doing them. So it's just exceptional. I just want to say that off the bat. I wanted to butter you up so you give me softball questions the rest of the day. So let's get to it.
Well, that makes me feel good. Thank you. Jason's a part of that as well because we do high school football together, covering Bellefonte this season.
Do you sleep? I've been wondering this the last couple of weeks. Do you sleep?
I do, but that's just it. It is work, sleep, work, sleep, work, sleep. But my work is also my fun, my pleasure. So I appreciate the kind words. It's been great to bring on a show, and this is something I do want to plug, like a Pay Dirt, a Penn State football show with Matt McGloin and Tom Hannafin, if you don't know about that. That is a good interlude as they previewed the game today just a couple hours before here on ESPN Radio, and we are simulcasting here on the bus today. So thank you. This is the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Penn State Tailgate Show with Zach Seyko, Thomas Frank Carr, T. Frank from Blue White Illustrated, and Jason Lord. So those are the introductions. Now let's get to what everyone's really after, and that's what is this Penn State team going to do? 7-6 a year ago. They lost in the bowl game. It was not pretty. Now, they had all the opt-outs and everything. But here are the real big changes, aside from the guys that just aren't back. They lost a lot of defensive starters. I know that. They lost Jahan Dotson. I get it. But you are losing your longtime defensive coordinator. Brent Pry has spent, even before Penn State, 12 years with James Franklin, and now he's the head coach at Virginia Tech. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but when people were saying the coaching carousel and who could land here and who could go there, and I said, not enough people are talking about Brent Pry as a serious coaching candidate to take a real high-up Division I program, and I named Virginia Tech. I said that would be an appropriate landing spot because people were saying Louisiana, some other MAC schools, and I just said that's too low for him.
Those were the jobs that he could have had before.
Yes.
Those are the jobs that he was passing on so that he could get a job like Virginia Tech. That's exactly right. Yeah.
But now you bring in Manny Diaz, which is huge. You are not getting somebody that is young, doesn't have any prior coaching experience, or is working their way up. This is somebody that is on the rebound because they were let go of Miami of Florida for better, the grass is greener. We're going after Mario Cristobal. We pulled him from Oregon, which they did. And then they said they really disrespected Manny Diaz there. I thought he ran a good program. I liked when he was promoted after Mark Rick had stepped down from the position. And he was DC there, and then he became the HC. Now he's the DC at Penn State, and I thought that was the perfect hire. Don't forget about special teams. There's a lot of turnover on special teams in terms of who's kicking the ball. Joe Lorig was the special teams coordinator, goes to Oregon. Now Stacy Collins comes in from Boise State. A lot of changes, but a lot of good changes for Penn State.
Yeah, and the special teams one is one that's highly underrated because we don't pay attention to special teams a lot. I'm guilty of that myself, of not really paying attention to the special teams, but it's hard to measure the impact of the special teams coach because it, like all the other positions, and I think maybe more so, it relies on a lot of talent. Like, if you're very good at special teams, you probably have some very specifically talented players in those roles, and that is kind of in some ways, it's a barometer of the health of your team. If you've got high 4-star players playing on special teams because your team is so good, well, your special teams are going to be great. And then obviously the kicking and punting part of the equation is so different from football. I say this all the time. It's more like golf than football. And I don't know anything about golf. The only thing I know is that I suck at golf. So, yeah,
noted.
That is a huge part of this transition this year.
I think a lot of with special teams too, a lot of it's taken for granted sometimes. I think we took for granted a lot of what you had at Penn State previous years, obviously, with the kicking and punting, with how good Stout was, with the touchbacks, obviously, and punting the football. Gilligan before him. I think you really take for granted a lot of what you have on special teams and don't realize how important the three phases of the game are when it comes to winning a football game. That can easily lose you a game, as it has. And special teams, I think, is very critical to T. Frank's point. I think it's something sometimes it's overlooked, and it shouldn't be. And as far as defense, Manny Diaz, I think you had to get a hire that was going to have that experience, that had the similarities, not necessarily style of Brent Pry, but had the similarities that has either going to, one, have head coaching experience, or two, be somebody that can be a head coach. You get that in Manny Diaz, and you know what you have with him. There wasn't a turnover chain at Miami for any reason. This is a guy that is going to preach getting the football out, and it's a guy that is going to bring a strong attitude to a defense.
So you're telling me we're getting the turnover Nittany Lion chain?
We already had the Lawn Boys chain here, right? So I don't know if you're going to have I don't know if you have the turnover chain as well, if he can kidnap that from Miami or not. But either way, he's going to force getting the ball out.
Well, UNLV has the turnover slot machine, and I think that's very fitting for Nevada, Las Vegas.
So here's been my thing about the turnover chain and that whole conversation at Penn State. My first feeling is big who cares, right? Yeah. So if they do or if they don't, it doesn't matter.
No.
But the turnover chain was and excuse this after the last couple of years, it was a virus in college football where everyone copied it, but nothing was as cool as the turnover chain because it was the original. It was purely Miami, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with the turnover chain became they could not back it up. They were not getting those turnovers. They were not playing at the same level as a team.
It stayed in the case.
Yeah. And so it became an artifice. But the spirit of it, go get the football, celebrate with your teammates, and reward the people that get the ball, I have absolutely no problem with that. That is one of those things that is just such a, first off, a side conversation about the team. But then primarily, I think if you're being fun, who cares? If it's done with fun.
Done with fun, I think the other part of it, too, is sometimes people like pats on the back for their work, and that's a big part of that. They get rewarded for the turnover. I think that's a major part of it, and that is going to keep morale on a big level. Obviously, when you had the Miami team that crushed Notre Dame and got to a big-time bowl game, the morale was great, but when that turnover chain kind of vanished and those turnovers kind of vanished, you saw morale go down. So that's a lot of times in the world that we're in right now. People like the pat on the back for a good job, and that's exactly what something like that does. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not something that I think you can sit there and say, oh, we'll copy that and we'll do that for the next 20 years. But it's also something that I have no problem with. I know people took issue with the Lawn Boys chain or whatever it was here. It's
I have a hard
time. It's them having
a problem with it.
I just have a problem with the term Lawn Boys because I don't think it's like the whole thing is be cool. Like that is the
be cool and be up to date. Yeah,
that is the whole point of the turnover chain is be cool. And I just don't feel like, and I apologize to the Lawn Boys specifically, and I'm a 32-year-old man. I don't know what's cool and not cool anymore, probably.
I'm
but to
long
me,
out of that conversation.
But to me, Lawn Boys does not roll off the tongue. It is not a particularly easy nickname to get on board with.
Turnover chain at the rap song.
A failed boy band? No, but in that running back group, we will hear from James Franklin about specifically, including the two freshmen, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. It is Nicholas Singleton for everyone, not Nick Singleton. He actually goes by Nicholas, to put that out there. This is the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships pregame show, the tailgate show leading up to Penn State versus Purdue. We take you all the way up till 6:30 before network coverage. When we come back from break, we have the historical perspective, and we're going to start to look at Penn State's outlook for the 2022 season here on ESPN Radio 103.7, 1450, and 99.5 The Bus.
Recycling at Beaver Stadium is as easy as blue and white. All glass and plastic bottles and metal cans go into the blue bags, and paper and trash in the white bags. Be sure to leave the area like you found it, like a true Nittany Lion fan. Thanks for recycling from your friends at the Center County Recycling and Refuse Authority.
Summer's here. Time to turn your focus to all those yard improvement projects that have yet to get done. Don't worry, Triangle True Value Rental has you covered. They have all the tools and machines you need to turn your to-do list into a done list, like wheeled and track skid steers, multi-excavators, 30-foot lifts, compact tractors, and much more. Call 814-355-7368 to reserve your rental today, or go online to trianglebuilding.com.
For every project, we've got what you're looking for.
Don't miss the Customer Appreciation Week sale September 12th through the 17th at Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center. Get 50% off all trees and 60% off shrubs and perennials. Perfect for all your last-minute fall landscaping projects. And if you need firewood, they can supply that too. Metzler Forest Products is your one-stop shop for everything outdoors. It's the Customer Appreciation Week sale September 12th through the 17th at Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center, 26 Timber Lane in Reedsville, and online at metzlerforestproducts.com. Steve Jones, he's a big damn deal.
And the 125th season of Penn State football is underway.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Lion Country Kia Sports Talk with Steve Jones. Weekdays from 1 till 3 p.m. on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Now, back to the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 99.5 The Bus. 135 years of Penn State football and counting. 13 decades of classic Penn State games. 3 decades of games in the Big Ten.
Let's take a trip down memory lane with today's historical perspective.
Sponsored by the Penn State All Sports Museum. Visit the new I Am a Penn Stater World War II exhibit at the Penn State All Sports Museum. The Penn State All Sports Museum, located at the southwest corner of Beaver Stadium.
Zach Seyko, your host. Alongside me is Thomas Frank Carr and Jason Lord. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Yes, Penn State is 15-3-1 all-time versus Purdue. They opened up the series in 1951. Purdue won. They shut out Penn State. Then they tied in 1952. And Purdue has not won in this series since 2004. The last time they played was in 2019. Your quarterback was none other than the old man himself, Sean Clifford. Noah Cain ran for 102 yards, and Jahan Dotson was the leading receiver, even though he wasn't the main receiver that year. Had 79 yards in that game back in 2019.
Yeah, obviously 2019 I think sticks out to me as a game in this. When you look at from the historical perspective of it, the games I loved the most of this, I won't call it a rivalry. I don't think Purdue's anywhere in the level of Penn State. But yeah,
15-3.
Yeah, 1999, 2000. When you look at what Drew Brees did against Penn State, I go back to the 99 game. In West Lafayette. He's driving for the win. Penn State gets the stop. I think that was a game that sticks out to me. Arrington forced a big turnover. Courtney Brown had a pick 6 in that game. And Penn State's defense kept them undefeated and then ultimately lost to Minnesota and lost 3 straight. Lost to that Brady quarterback in Michigan, too.
Yeah, that
turned
guy.
out okay, yeah. But I think that game stuck out to me as one of the most memorable. I think the 2004 game that Purdue won here against Zach Mills.
Kyle Orton and Zach Mills.
The quarterback. I think that game stuck out. I go back to 2016, too, the game that cost Darrell Hazell his job. Penn State struggled in that game in the first half. That was a 17-17 game. I think Purdue even had the lead at one point in that game, 14-7 or 21-14. At some point, and obviously Penn State just pulled away in the second half when 62-24 cost Darrell Hazell his job. But
yeah, that's the hashtag second half team.
Yes,
Penn State
2016
They did that regularly
all
that
the
year.
time. Yep, Big Ten championship, Michigan State game, all the time. And
I think that 2004 game might have been my first Penn State football memory. period.
Yeah.
I think that was the first game I remember watching on TV because I grew up in the middle of nowhere and we didn't get, this is back, believe it or not.
Before the $7 billion TV deals?
Yeah.
Yes. I was just about to say.
Streaming on Peacock. No Peacock streaming.
Yeah. If there's a child out there who is listening to this show that's like under the age of 18, believe it or not, everything was not on television. You had to wait to get games. And this is coming from me who grew up with the internet. I can't imagine what it was like in the 70s and 80s, but it was one of the first games I remember watching because you had to watch it live, and there was only a couple times that Penn State football was on during the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. So before Big Ten Network, they weren't on every week.
Yeah,
I think that was one great point. And that game in 1999, two things. 1999, I know it was on TV because... 1999, I know it was on TV because Drew Brees is driving for the win, and that was the old thing where they broke away for the Pennsylvania lottery. And you're literally sitting there saying, let's go.
This is why we have the historical perspective.
Yeah, literally broke away.
Oh, man, I remember that.
Completely broke away with the Pennsylvania lottery, and he missed almost the final 2 minutes. It was like, I know how Jets and Raiders fans feel about Heidi now. But 2004, the funny part, I talked to Terrell Golden. I remember being a senior. I was working for the student radio station. And he talked to him after the game. He scored a touchdown in that game. He did a little dance. Mm-hmm. He thought Joe Paterno was going to congratulate him. Joe Paterno said, "There's the bench, sit down." and right there, you learn quickly you never showboat on a Joe Paterno team. He never allowed it. And that was the one memory that sticks out of that game. Penn State lost by a touchdown. I think it was like 20-13 or somewhere around there was the score. But that memory of 2004 is where I stick out. Terrell Golden literally just getting benched when he celebrated.
What sticks out to me is we used to do some weird stuff with TV.
Oh, quite a bit.
TV used to be weird.
Quite a bit. When you had the old picture-in-picture back in the day, it was like having gold.
Yeah.
Instead of before you had the apps and 25 other things.
Penn State 15-3-1 all-time versus Purdue, played in 51-52, then took a big hiatus to 1995 after they joined the Big Ten to pick up that renewed, again, not a rivalry, but just a
series.
Yeah, series on a game on the schedule that was a part of Penn State's season. Now Penn State opens on the road for the 12th time out of the last 13 seasons. New athletic director Patrick Kraft has made that a point. James Franklin is now talking about it. Steve Jones, who's going to call this game and makes it very apparent on his show on ESPN radio here that Penn State has had all of these consecutive road games and no one's really said anything about it. So third season in a row opening specifically on the road against a Big Ten foe. We remember the Indiana game. We try not to. And then they won against Wisconsin the year before. So now they're doing it in the black hole against Purdue. Penn State is 6-2 in season openers under James Franklin. Lost to Temple, and they lost to Indiana. So good showing from Franklin and company in the past 8 years. And now they go to open up the season against Purdue. So let's start to talk about that general outlook for the 2022 season. For you guys, T. Frank, I'll start with you. Who is the best addition or even the best returner on this Penn State team? And that can be a coach too. If that's Manny Diaz, that's fine. But
so I'm TBD on Manny Diaz. Not that I don't think his scheme is good, and it's not. I think it's a great transition from Brent Pry because you talk about familiarity with James Franklin and Purdue or whatever, right? Brent Pry's been in the Big Ten for a long time now.
Yeah.
This style of defense is still in the Big Ten. They're from the same family of coaches. But the difference is Manny Diaz is a maniac, like when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah.
But how's that going to work out this season in year one? So I'm TBD on him.
Okay.
It's got to be Nick Singleton. Nicholas Singleton. Sorry, I didn't realize I was doing the show with his mom.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
I got that.
I still call Mike Vick Michael Vick, so I've never listened to that stuff anyway.
But so Penn State needed explosiveness in the running game last year. We were calling this out in the spring game in 2020, in 2021, and it was obvious they didn't have it last year. And then when you shrink the game plan down and you don't have that element, You have to find another way to be explosive, and Penn State put it all on Sean Clifford. This game, this year, does not have to all be about the 6-year quarterback now, because between Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, and if you believe Jaywan Sider, Kevon Lee now is a fast player, which I've never seen anyone just suddenly become fast, but we'll see. Like, I'll give him the opportunity to prove me wrong there. They now have explosiveness in the running game. How quickly does that become a center point in this offense? How quickly can he provide that? Is it tonight?
I think it is.
Yeah, because he's got to. Like, he has to this season.
I think Kevon Lee will start the first series, and then it'll be Nicholas Singleton. And Katron Allen not too far behind. I really think they're a 2A, 2B only because Kevon Lee has the veteranship that he does. If he was a sophomore, if he wasn't a redshirt junior, it would be Singleton or Allen out there to start. Jason, who's your biggest addition or biggest returner? You can even say Sean Clifford. Getting him back is very important.
Biggest addition, I'll give you another one. First of all, biggest addition, I agree with T. Frank, was Singleton. I think Singleton or Allen. And an addition, period, with the running game. Your running game was terrible last year. It's got to be better, especially in short yardage. I know you can blame the offensive line on a lot of things. That running game's got to get a lot of better. That, to me, is the biggest addition. I'll throw you a wild card name in there as well, though. Mitchell Tinsley.
Okay.
Because you lose Dotson, you lose that up top deep receiver. Parker Washington showed how good he can be last year, and showed he could probably be a number one receiver. Lambert Smith is there. He's a solid receiver. That depth at wide receiver, I think, is concerning to me. I think that's one thing. And you have a guy like Tinsley, the transfer from Western Kentucky, that you could throw up top, too, and effectively. I think that was a great addition in the transfer portal, and it's good usage of the transfer portal, because when you're a good team, you don't want to get 22 transfers like Nebraska did. Yep. You want to literally try to plug in the holes, and I think they did a good job there with Tinsley.
Yeah, and they focused on areas where you can use veteran players. You're not just in areas of need, but offensive linemen that are veterans that you don't have to develop. Mitchell Tinsley, you needed a steady presence beside Parker Washington. You don't need more talent. As opposed to last year, Johnny Dixon is going to pay dividends this year.
Yes.
So the balance of how you get these veteran players and the specific areas that you get them in, I think are also critical. Going back to filling holes like Arnold Ebiketie. That judiciousness and using and identifying talent that you want out of the portal at key positions where it's hard to always develop. And it's hard to hit at some of these positions.
Yeah.
Offensive line. I know they didn't get a tackle. That's going to be the white whale this offseason. Can they get a tackle in the portal? But before we get there, we need to see what they have on the field. Another guy I want to point out, if you don't mind if I take another, is Olaf Ashanu. You speak about the offensive line and some of their issues, and their best player, their most talented player, did not play the best last year in Rasheed Walker. And, I've been polite in my comments about Rasheed Walker because
Green Bay likes him. They signed him.
Yes. Exactly, because he's trying now. And, I don't want to... Again, I try to be careful with those things of effort and
he had raw talent, and he was great his freshman year.
Yeah. And it just never evolved.
Yeah.
Does Olaf Ashanu provide more this year, more effort, more execution, more consistency? That is a huge... Because Rasheed Walker would wipe out the side of a line, of the offensive line. He would just collapse the left side on one play, and then on the next play, or the next 5 plays, where was he? If you have consistency from your most talented player, it sets the tone. You can have a couple road graders on an average offensive line, and it's a good line. Getting some of those players play like that this year, I think they have the opportunity to have that. And Fashanu is one of the guys I'm looking at.
This is the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Penn State Tailgate Show. Live in studio, Jason Lord, T. Frank, and Zach Seyko with you, taking you all the way up till 6:30. Let's talk about biggest losses. Biggest losses for Penn State, not named Jahan Dotson, and even Brent Pry. We brought up Coach Pry a lot, but not named Jahan Dotson.
Well, I got the easy one first, so Jason, you go first on this one.
Well, I can give you a pick one, really. At linebacker, period. If you could have had Ellis Brooks back, if you could have had Brandon Smith back, any of those guys
Jesse
could have had...
Lucchetta, even though he rotated
obviously.
around.
Yeah. any of these guys could have come back just for one more year. You would have added depth there, but most importantly, you would have added experience. I think there's a lot of potential at the linebacker position. There's not a lot of experience beyond Jacobs right now, and I think that's a concern. Obviously, it's been talked about all offseason for good reason. So your biggest loss to me is any of those guys. If you could just have one of those guys back at that position to add the experience that you really need at linebacker right now.
I'm going to get into this a little bit deeper when we talk about this specific game later.
Okay.
But Arnold Ebiketie.
Okay.
Pass rush. There's some talent here, right?
I hope Chop Robinson becomes the next Arnold Ebiketie.
Right.
Yep.
But we had way more evidence that Arnold Ebiketie was who he was at Temple than we have that Chop Robinson is anything.
Yes.
Anywhere. So, like I said, both teams, we're going to dive deep into their pass rush coming up when we talk about the game. But without Arnold Ebiketie, my question is, what is the ceiling of this defense? Because you've got a potentially exceptional secondary. One of the best collections of talent that I've seen, where you have 4 guys at corner that I think are possible starters. And when you fold in Johnny Dixon, and Daquan Hardy is the slot guy. And then at safety, you've got two veterans.
The guy who led the nation in picks.
Jair Brown, he's going into a playmaking role, and you've got a super talented Zakee Wheatley at the other position with Keaton Ellis, a very dependable, tough, hard-hitting safety that is a really good player. And the guy we had just abandoned talking about, who was super talented last year and was the rising freshman in Jalen Reed.
I was going to say, are you name-dropping Jalen Reed right now? That's how good the secondary is.
Right, we forgot about him. That's how good this secondary can be. But they can't do it alone. Like, you cannot cover for 8 seconds. So, who's getting home? Losing Arnold Ebiketie is huge because he was a line in the sand for this team last year. He was the only one getting pressure. He did it all himself.
Yeah.
And they need to find somebody or some buddies to be that guy.
All right. Before we take a timeout, and we'll come back with the Coach's Corner, where we hear directly from James Franklin in his 30-plus minute press conference that he does weekly. How would you grade all the position groups to start the season? Let's just kind of go round table. We'll start with quarterbacks. Sean Clifford coming back. You have 2 very talented freshmen and Christian Veillere in the fold. Much better than it was last year. I'm going to go with a B+ to grade to even before they even take the football field right now.
What is a passing grade?
Passing grade. What's a passing grade in high school? Or D's get degrees.
Okay, so let's go C+ because
or C's get degrees.
I think that the quarterback room could be, and I don't want to filibuster. Sorry, it could be the guy in the group that's getting a really good grade on a group project, but is not pulling his weight as much as the other players, and that's where Sean Clifford finds himself sometimes on the offense. And then other times he's the guy that is just out there. He's got the binder. He's got the notes. He's got everybody's jobs and responsibilities, and he's leading the group. But I'll give it a C+ because I don't know which one of those is going to show up.
This is right now to start. So this is where you think from day one, or what they would get right now. Jason?
This will probably end up being talked about in the Coach's Corner. What does James Franklin know that we don't? Because he usually doesn't reveal that depth chart so early, and he did. So in terms of number 2.
I have the quote section now.
So I think that, so I would give it a B- at the moment, because I think you have to also look at the fact that Sean Clifford is, you don't want to say vulnerable, but pretty darn close to it. He's not played a full year. There's a chance he goes down some point this year. What you have behind him, I think you have a lot of potential. So I think you probably have a B-. I think if Clifford stays healthy for much of the year, how effective will he be? I think he's going to learn a lot more. I thought he played pretty well to start the season last year under a new offensive coordinator, obviously with Yurcich. I think now the question is, what does he develop really this year? I think probably B- is fair.
Running backs, I'm going to go B- just because you have Kevon Lee is good, but he's not great. And you're supposed to have that home run power in the form of 2 18-year-olds. But that's the thing. They're true freshmen. I know they're talented. I just hope that freshman inexperience doesn't show up a little too much here. But they have the home run capability, so that brings them way up, because if they weren't in the room, this would be a D running back room if it was Lee, Devin Ford, and Keziah Holmes, if he was still here, didn't transfer out.
I'm going to give it a B+ to be conservative, but I agree. So, like, what's the pass blocking like? What's the retention of routes and understanding
pass catching, yeah.
all of the different parts of the offense? Can you integrate them into that? I think Katron Allen has a lot of that stuff already.
From IMG?
From IMG. He's got that semi-pro vibe about him.
Batman.
I've joked that he's a sophomore already. Mm-hmm. He came in with sophomore skills. Yeah. So it's about Singleton and that home run ability and the ability to get everything out of him. So I'll give B+ there.
A B, because I think to that point, how are you going to use them beyond the running game? How are you going to put Singleton in that passing attack? How are these guys going to pick up the blitz? I think is a lot of things that not necessarily intangibles, but the other stuff beyond running the football. You could easily say Singleton's got that Saquon Barkley ability. You've not seen it yet, though. So I think for that reason, I would probably be conservative and say a B.
All right. Pass catchers. This includes receivers and tight ends. I'm going to go... I don't know how much of a stretch it is, even with losing Jahan Dotson, but I say A- because I think this group is diverse. You can go anywhere and have production. Tinsley, Washington, it's not just hyper-focused on one guy. And this is also on the fact that I am banking that Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren take a major step forward.
I was going to ask you, you're including the tight ends and pass catchers. Yeah. Okay, then I'm going a solid A. Because I agree that the options are much more diverse this year, and this is a bit on Clifford too, of using all of your resources, and not to say that he necessarily locked on to Jahan Dotson too much last year, because if you design a play to go to the dude and he's open, throw him the football. But he didn't always utilize the tight ends, I don't think. So that is going to kind of shade this grade, but I think that the depth and talent there is an A for sure.
A- as well, I think, with the depth and the talent, as T. Frank said. I think you have those tight ends that have experience there. You have the receivers. And I think when you're a quarterback or a coach and you're talking about different receivers each time, that's a sign to your depth right there. And you've not heard the same name mentioned several times this last week, really, from a lot of guys. So I think when you look at the depth, top to bottom, receivers and pass catchers, without the tight ends, I think you're going to go B here, but with the tight ends, I think that brings it up to an A-.
Mitchell Tinsley's interesting to me.
I think so too.
That's what makes this group for me in the A category.
Yeah, they don't get him. The question becomes, who's your 5, who's your 6, who's even your 4?
Well, you have Parker Washington and now Mitchell Tinsley, but Keandre Lambert-Smith hasn't been quite there yet. Is he developing? Where's Malik Mega? Right. Do you thrust a Caden Saunders onto the field because you're not getting the production from your veterans? Mitchell Tinsley is the anchor for this group.
And what he does too is, I don't think, this is my read of the situation last year. Penn State did not have a backup to Parker Washington. They had no other slot receivers. They moved Marquise Wilson to receiver, and he got a couple plays in early in the season in the slot, and then it's like, well, that's not really going to work this year, so they kind of moved him back to defense. Mitchell Tinsley can play inside and out. We already saw that in the blue-white game. He runs great routes. And James Franklin talked about him getting more explosive in the offseason. Said that he did. I'm curious to see if he's the guy this year. I love Parker Washington. I'm not trying to take anything away. But his explosive ability at Western Kentucky, and if he got faster, because I know they were not good secondaries, but he was doing it against Big Ten secondaries in Indiana and Michigan State. And if he is in this program getting these resources and he is more explosive, he's got all of the skills as long as he got faster and all of those other metrics improved.
Let's go to offensive line, and to keep up on the pace, we're going to have to go a little quicker because we have to hear from Coach, and we're going to get into the actual overview of Purdue in just a moment here. Offensive line, since we have talked about it a little bit, I'm going to go C- just because of the group's a little more deep. But they were bad last year. Like, you're going from basically an F to a D- to a C- for me. So that is a big jump, but it's still not that great of a grade.
I'm going to go B-, and I'm banking most of this on talent. Plus, 3 of the 5 starters are different this year.
Well, I love Juice Scruggs.
Yeah.
But, what is Sal Wormley going to be back from injury in a strong way? What is the case with Landon Tangwall?
Yeah.
Is he going to start? Because I'm hearing Hunter Norzad's going to slide in. So did Tangwall not have that great of an offseason?
That's an area that concerned me because I was very high on him. So that is a concern. But I do think just the talent here is so much better than last year.
All right, Jason, your offensive line grade.
What we've seen under James Franklin, where they don't have the clear-cut starting 5, where they base it off the talent and they rotate it out, that's when it gets better. So I think for me it is probably a C- or a C at this moment. I'll give it a C. I think based on the talent you have, there is the uncertainty of who's going to start right now. I think probably you have 3 set into stone, but the other 2 you don't know. And it seems like to me under James Franklin, when you haven't had those 5 that you were going to start right out of the get-go, it's been a better offensive line. So I bank on that a little bit, and I think they'll be a little bit better this year. I give them a C.
Let's roll through the defense here on the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Penn State Tailgate Show on 99.5 The Bus and ESPN Radio. Defensive line, I love this group, actually, because you could go 4 deep with guys who could seriously contribute at their backups, even if they get thrust into a starting role, like a Jordan Vandenberg, who stepped up in a big way. You've denied Dennis Sutton, who's going after the sack record as a true freshman. That's why he wears number 33. I'm going to go A for defensive line. You get P.J. Mustipher back. You get Chop Robinson in the transfer portal. You get Adisa Isaac back. I think this is they're all healthy. A.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. What you guys feel about the offensive line, I feel about the upside of this defensive line. So I'm going to just go with a solid B because they need pass rush. And 5-star freshman or not, he's a freshman. And I don't want to put that on, especially out of the gate right here in a big moment. That dude has to go get a 2-3 sacks, 8 pressures. I don't want to put that on him. So until they find those guys, it's just a B because that's what they have. They have a lot of depth. Yeah. They don't have any stars right now.
This line didn't have Mustipher coming back, didn't have Isaac coming back. I think they'd be in a lot more trouble than they are. I think there'd be a major difference. I give it probably an A-. I do agree with both of you, though. I think, first of all, potential is one thing, production's another thing. So I think, obviously, you need to see what these freshmen can do. You've heard a lot about them. Obviously, they shine in the spring game. I think all of us can shine in a spring game when you're playing in a practice. Big difference when you're on the field in the game. I think, to me, right now, I give it an A-. I think you are going to need to see a little bit out of those pass rushers. That potential needs to become production.
Linebackers, I'll keep it short because Curtis Jacobs is I think he will have a very good season. I think he will be a day 2 draft pick. But I don't know what's going to happen with Tyler Elsdon, Kobe King, because I'm hearing that they're learning the defense because they're still young. But Kobe King's a great athlete, but he's not really making the right calls, the right reads. Elsdon's not as good of an athlete, but he is making the right reads. And then at what rate? What is that big of a difference? You have Jonathan Sutherland coming down from the secondary. I'm going to go with a D right now, especially, and if any of those guys get hurt, it is not good because you have. I like the true freshman, but
you're not a fan of Dom DeLuca?
Well, he had 2. Hey, what did he have 2 interceptions in the Blue and White game?
I think he got his hands on 3 of them.
So he's a great story, but this is not a deep. It's not only a lackluster starting group after Curtis Jacobs. It's really not that deep. I think, like I said, the true freshmen that are there, what kind of light they have from Franklin, I don't know. But I don't think on day 1 they should be playing or even game 12 by the end of the year.
So I'm not as low on Tyler Elsdon as most people, apparently, because I think he's a capable football player, especially in this defense. He is a headhunter. He is an aggressive, explosive, downhill linebacker where he's got some pop to him. It reminds me a little bit of Jason Kabinda, where he's really fast going forward, but I do question his lateral ability, and that's going to be a big thing. But I think for the most part of the Mike linebacker, stop the run, get the team in bad situations, and then you can hide him in coverage, I think he can do those things. Curtis Jacobs, huge fan. He's a fan of the BWI Daily Edition. We had him on this summer. We're basically best friends at this point, so I'm letting that be a bias in my analysis, but I think he's going to be very good. And then Jonathan Sutherland plays a position at the Sam linebacker that is a temporary position. When Curtis Jacobs played it last year, he was only on the field for first and second down. So can you hide that? I think you can. So I'm going with a C+ here.
Curtis Jacobs keeps this group from failing. I think, to me, I give it a D. That's the experience that Jacobs brings. I like him a lot. I think he's got the chance to be a great player. Your middle linebacker, your Mike linebackers, that's your quarterback on defense.
Yeah.
You don't have a quarterback on defense right now. You had to wait till week 1. We had to wait till Monday to find out who's starting at that position. That's a concern for me in a big way. As I said earlier, there's potential on this linebacker position. There's not production just yet. I give it a D, and Curtis Jacobs keeps it from being an F. Yeah, that is, to me, the biggest weakness on this team right now is linebacker, and it's concerning because it's linebacker You're used to that growing up, but I think, to me, it's got to show a lot in these first couple games, especially those 2 or 3 on the road.
Secondary, we've already really talked about it. Everything that they offer. Other people, the national media, have them top 5 in the country, the top 5 position group. So I'm going to go A. I will go right along with everything that's been said up to this point on this show and even before.
So Jair Brown has done it, right? He's been at that level of production that is exceptional. Joey Porter Jr. needs to be elite this year. So he's been very good. I think he's been better than people give him credit for, but he's got to do it this year.
And more penalties. Fewer penalties.
Fewer penalties. Get your hands on the football at the catch point. Make plays. That's what's keeping it from being an A+. A as well.
Yep, A here as well. I think that's his biggest strength on the defense. Porter is a guy that I'm watching. I agree with T. Frank. I think he's got to make bigger plays. He gets lost at times. That Michigan play, I thought it was his fault, that crisscross. I thought he was miscommunication there, and I think you can't have plays like that in big games if you're going to be a star. I think that's obviously we all make mistakes, but that's a spot where you got to show you're at your best. So I think it's an A. I think it's the strongest part of the defense, but I need to see a little bit more out of guys like Porter.
All right, last one before we go to break here. Special teams. I'm going to go with a D because of Jordan Stout carried this group. He was the kickoff man, place kicker, and the punter. He was able to flip the field when the offense wasn't holding up its end of the bargain. I'm going to go with D because you don't just readily replace that. I think Barney and Moore is solid. That's fine. They have Alex Bichetta behind him if they need him at any point in time. I'm worried about Jake Pinniger for deep kicks. Sanders Sahedek's supposed to be that 40 and in pin. Now it's 40 and out. Sahedek, it doesn't really flow, but that is your group. And then kickoffs are... I think kickoff coverage will be fine, but you don't have that reliability of Stout anymore where 99 times out of 100, he gave you a great play. Not a good play, a great play.
So let's also remember Nick Singleton's going to be returning some kicks. And that's a huge thing, having a viable threat to actually return the football. And then who's the punt returner? That's another interesting
Tinsley,
thing.
maybe?
I don't know.
Marquise Wilson?
Yeah, we'll find out when they force a punt.
Devin Ford?
Yeah. So I don't think Devin Ford. I don't think he's going to be the guy there. A running back is typically a linear, explosive downfield guy. You need a receiver or a corner, somebody with lateral agility to be the punt returner. But there's a lot of guys, but I don't know who the guy is. But when it comes to the kicking and punting, we don't know what we don't know. I've never seen Barney and Moore punt outside of practice. So I'm going to go a C because I just don't know. And I don't want to assume these guys are bad until I see what they do. But you're right. Pinniger, field goal kicking, we have some information there, and it's not over.
We've seen him kick.
It's a Sutherland situation where you're not super confident going into game one.
Yeah, I'm not confident at all with the kicking game right now. I think that's a big reason why you have to give it a C, C-.
You guys are so negative.
I get the lowest grade.
I'm going in the C-. I just gave the secondary an A, but I did criticize
September 1st, guys. This is when you're at your peak excitement.
It's game one. You're always going to have...
Nothing like getting excited for a punter that just got awarded a scholarship.
You get excited... Hey, when you have Eli Manning tell people you're getting scholarships, I think that's a good sign. But, I think the unknown is the biggest thing here. What you know with Pinniger is not always good. And as you guys said, I think kick returner, they will be strong. I think they will have an effective guy. How much does that kick returner affect the game? Because I think we've seen college football this day and age become fair catch university now from what we're seeing. So how much that affects it, I don't know. But I think from a punting and kicking standpoint, like I said at the beginning of the show, we were spoiled through the last couple of years.
I just want to point this out. Virginia Tech did not have a scholarship for Jordan Stout, which is why he landed at Penn State.
Whatever.
So what we know and don't know about Barney and Moore, I view it in the same situation until I see him punt.
Absolutely.
I don't think he's Jordan Stout because you're not going to find that again.
No.
But we don't know.
Exactly, and that's why you say the unknown. And as I said, I think that's when you look at it, you're probably, at least from outside looking in right now, it's a C or C- group. But could it be an A by week 6? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
All right, we hear from James Franklin next, specific quotes from his weekly press conference, and then we start to talk about Purdue and what they offer. Everything you need to know about the Boilermakers heading into this game. It's the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Penn State Tailgate Show with Jason Lord, T. Frank, and myself, Zach Seyko, on 99.5 The Bus and ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450.
Hey folks, Gina Coy Stocker from Stocker Chevrolet. Right now, we're celebrating the number of fuel-efficient Chevys that are out there, making it the smart way to hit the open roads this summer. Just announced by the J.D. Power 2022 Initial Quality Study, the Chevy Equinox is the highest-ranked compact SUV, both foreign or domestic. And this month, on all 2022 Equinox models, we've got interest rates as low as 0%. And remember, only at Stocker Chevrolet do you get the Stocker Advantage with the purchase of any new vehicle. So come on down to Stocker Chevrolet or visit us online at StockerChevrolet.com. Work your whole deal and we'll deliver the car to you.
Kick back, relax. Time for a beer. Whatever your brand, you'll find it here at Hickey's.
Football season is back, and whether you're tailgating or watching the game at home, you can count on W.R. Hickey and their huge selection of great craft brews to keep your party going, like Trogs, Axman, New Trail, Otto's, and Happy Valley Brewing, just to name a few. 6-packs, 12-packs, or by the case, Hickey's will bring your beer right to your car, or stop by and shop their expanded showroom in person. Don't forget to ask about their happy hour specials, available from 3 to 6 on Fridays. Hickey's open Monday through Wednesday and Saturdays from 9 to 7, Thursdays and Fridays 9 to 8, and closed on Sunday. Serving Penn Staters since 1933, Hickey's is your local craft beer headquarters. Visit them on East College Avenue, just below Beaver Stadium.
Hickey Beer Distributor. Nothing like the taste of a cold beer.
W.R. Hickey reminds everyone to please drink responsibly.
Blaze Alexander Chevrolet Buick in Phillipsburg has the perfect vehicle for your summer vacation and camping travel with the Chevy Open Road Sales Event. Now is the time to buy. We have a large selection of Chevrolet trucks and SUVs on the lot and more headed to our lot. So stop in and reserve yours today or order exactly what you want. We have the area's largest selection of used vehicles on the lot at the best prices around. At Blaze Alexander Chevrolet Buick in Phillipsburg, we're taking deals the other guys won't. Find new roads. Proud sponsor of Penn State Athletics.
Now, back to the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 99.5 The Bus. Press conferences are boring, right?
How's everybody doing?
That's why we've set aside the most important stuff for you. Let's find out what James Franklin had to say in today's Coach's Corner. Sponsored by Ben Franklin Technology Partners. Every year, dozens of startups launch with Ben Franklin Technology Partners. If you need funding to develop a new product, you need to know Ben Franklin Technology Partners. Visit them online at cmp.benfranklin.org.
Jason Lord, Thomas Frank Carr, T. Frank, and myself, Zach Seyko, all in studio for the preview of Penn State Purdue. Now we hear from James Franklin, who's going to help us preview not only the season, but Purdue itself, the foe for week 1 to open the season on a Thursday. We'll start with the running backs. James Franklin on the running backs, going through all of Kevon Lee, the 2 freshmen, and Devin Ford as well, someone he feels hasn't gotten enough recognition. But take a listen to Coach on what he thinks about the backfield.
A couple things. Obviously, again, I don't want to keep saying this to you guys, but, it's one thing to do it in practice. It's another thing to do it in Big Ten games under the lights and things like that, although I think they're prepared for that. Having them here in the spring, I think, was helpful for that. But I think they both have the ability to make big plays. I mean, it's pretty well documented that Nick is big and strong and fast and has a chance to go 80 yards at any point in the game. And to be honest with you, I think, the guy that, maybe, to everybody probably but him, the surprise of the training camp, was Fat Man, is what we call him. I don't know if you guys know that's his nickname or not, but Katron, he probably was the surprise at camp in terms of his production and big play ability as well. A little bit of a different style than Nick, but both big, strong, powerful backs that can make you miss and break tackles. And both have seemed to do a really good job with understanding the offense, understand defenses and pressures and protections and all those types of things. And then Kevon, a year older and more experienced. So, that group, as well as the guy that, people aren't talking about, that we also have a ton of confidence and faith in, is Devin Ford as well, who will also have a significant special teams role too. So,
All right, your guys' thoughts here on the running backs. I mean, he's glowing about the two freshmen.
Yeah.
Is it any secret? And I was saying a couple weeks before, we had Blue and White Breakdown, our Penn State sports show on ESPN Radio, and I talked about a lot that I think Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are going to be the featured backs by the end of the season. Is that not a secret anymore?
Well, so unfortunately, and not to be down on Kevon Lee, but we've known exactly what he is since he was a freshman. Like, you watch him play, and that's what he is. He's a big-bodied, physical back that lacks the explosive home run speed. And when you do that, you are automatically then a part of a rotation. You're never going to be the guy. My only other point that I come from this, too, I'm curious about Devin Ford. Does he have a specific role in the offense outside of just being one of the running backs in the rotation? And two, does somebody with the first name Katron need a nickname? Because Katron's pretty cool as a name anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, no doubt about it. I wish my name was like that. My nicknames were terrible, but I
the
think,
Lord.
Well, you got that at least. You know, my last name was.
You have the same. You have the same name as God.
Well, and yeah. Well, that's nothing like that. But I think the one thing I catch out of this, obviously, the obvious point. Yeah, we are going to see Singleton. We are going to see Allen quite a bit. We're going to see them top the depth chart by week 2 or 3 at the latest, because as T. Frank said, I think you know what we have out of Lee. The other point that's interesting, and Coach brings this up quite a bit, do you ever notice they throw the dig in there to how important it is to enroll early and be here in spring? It's almost like the NFL voluntary mini camps that aren't exactly voluntary. You got to be there the whole time. Yeah. I think the emphasis now becomes, and this is what has been in college football, where the early enrollment gets the early worm gets the bird, or whatever the early bird gets the worm, whatever that cliche is. Yeah. Early bird gets the worm. There we go. I had it backwards, but that's a big part of it. I think the emphasis on early enrollment and it really being here, getting the playbook down, getting up to that depth chart, getting up on that depth chart quickly, and being that guy in backfield like Singleton is probably going to be by week 2 or 3. But I always like that when they throw in the early enrollment emphasis in there. It's just like the NFL.
All right, let's get to our other quote. This is James Franklin on why Penn State will be better after the past 2 seasons of lackluster success.
I think the biggest thing that it's been pretty consistent message, I think all preseason, is I just think we're back in more of a similar role than we've been in terms of depth. We got much more depth than we had in the previous 2 years for a number of reasons. Obviously, the COVID year, we lost some players based on some decisions that were made in the conference. And then obviously this past year, you look at our depth at the quarterback position in terms of proven commodities or guys that, we felt were, ready to play in Big Ten games. We just were in a much different position. Defensive tackle depth, which was a problem last year after losing PJ, and then quarterback depth as well. So, that's probably the biggest thing that jumps out to me. But again, we got to go out and do it.
All right. Is Penn State better in 2022 based on what James Franklin said?
So this is actually, I followed up later in the press conference asking about this. Is not just that you have more players, but are the players pushing the starters so that you actually get better play? And he said that's basically what I've been talking about. That's what I've been trying to say this whole time. It's not just that you have more players to play. Not that there could be 9 defensive tackles and defensive ends playing, but that the players at the top of the depth chart can't just be the guy. You have to actually earn the job.
Yeah, and that's where I think the depth comes in. I think that goes back to your point on the defensive line, especially where you have plenty of depth there, but you had plenty of depth, plenty of potential. Can you be that guy? Can you step up and be that guy that tops the depth chart? Not only in defensive line, that's the one that sticks out, but yeah, it comes down to what you have at a lot of positions. You know what you have in terms of expectations. It comes down to execution. It comes down to those guys that push you behind you to where you're going to be as a team come even week 5 or 6.
All right, let's get to our scouting report. So that was Coach's Corner with James Franklin. and he's going to have a lot more to say. We're going to have his post-game presser on the post-game show, of course, how fitting. But now let's actually talk about the Boilermakers. We spent a lot of time on the Nittany Lions. You need to know your foe, know the opponent. Purdue in 2021, 9-4 overall, 6-3 in the Big Ten West. They were very good last year. Some signature wins against teams that I felt were very overrated, but they did knock off a number 2 Iowa and a number 3 Michigan State. They lost to Ohio State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Notre Dame, who was ranked 12th at the time. Very respectable opponents. Those were all 4 of their losses, and very respectable opponents. They beat Tennessee in an offensive thriller. If you like defense, sorry, too bad you weren't getting it in the Music City Bowl, but it was 48-45 in OT. So Purdue finished 9-4, as said. Jeff Brom's coming into his 6th season. And some names you need to know: Aiden O'Connell, King Daru, Payne Durham at tight end. On defense, these 2 guys really stick out to me. There's a lot of veterans, but just not a lot of big name players that they used to have, like a George Karlaftis, for example. But Branson Dean along the defensive line, and Jalen Graham. We had Tim Newton, who's the counterpart to Steve Jones, play-by-play announcer for Purdue, and he said that Jalen Graham is going to be all over the place. He's going to be he's listed as the nickel on the official Purdue depth chart, but he's going to drop back in coverage. Like, he's going to be used in every which way. He's actually really good in man-to-man and zone.
He's going to have to be the eraser for the Penn State tight ends. He's got the size, 6'3", 225, 230 pounds, and a great athlete. He was young last year. He made some mistakes, some mental mistakes, especially against the run. The guy that I am highlighting is Branson Dean, because, and this is what I want to get to.
I'm glad I put him in my list.
Branson Dean is the only returning Purdue Boilermaker that can rush the passer. They have to find a pass rush. This defense last year was built on the defensive line. It was built from the front to the back because the secondary was terrible. They were not good. They had busted assignments, and they just had guys that were not athletically up to par. So they don't have a Karlaftis. And Jeff Brom even said this week, somebody asked him, have you found your pass rush? And he said, if we don't have it, we're going to need to manufacture one. Penn State is in the exact same situation. Like I said, is Adisa Isaac back? Is Chop Robinson able to be that guy? Is Denai Dennis Sutton going to come out of the gates and change the face of this defense? There are like 9 names you could go through. None of them in this game are proven on either side of the ball. So who's getting pressure? That is going to dictate who is successful in this game, because the Purdue uses their cover 0, which is an all-out blitz, super aggressive. But it's not just about overloading and getting free rushers. It's about creating one-on-one opportunities. And when you have George Karlaftis and you can't double-team him, you're cooked. Yeah. But they don't have that this year. They don't have that. No, they don't.
A secondary that returns a lot of experience, but again, it's like, okay, you're on a 1 to 10 scale, you're going from a 1 to what, a 2 or a 3? It's an improvement, but it's still not good.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys are injured too. So the secondary is very banged up through training camp. So that's going to be a huge thing.
That's a
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the worry, and I think when you play a cover 0, you're going to blitz like that, you got to get to the quarterback. If you don't, you are very susceptible to the big play. And that's, I think, the concern for me with Purdue right now. Do they have that guy? Can Dean get to the quarterback? Because if they don't get to Clifford and you create those matchups, I don't care who's at wide receiver, they're going to get open. When you play a cover 0, you can't get to the quarterback, you're not going to cover. So I think that's the concern for me, whether it's Dean, whether it's Graham, whether it's anybody. You've got to get to the quarterback. Even not banged up, that secondary, as Steve Frank said, was weak. And I think they have their concerns, and that's where Penn State can hit this team in a big way. And if you can't get to the quarterback, you're in trouble. And that's the concern for me. I look at Purdue on paper right now. They just don't have that guy that they normally have. And that's not just on defense. That's on offense. You don't have that Rondale Moore anymore. You don't have the Bell anymore.
David Bell was the 50-50 guy. He would go up and win the jump balls every single time. They lost the top 2 receivers, and they were really good. One for academic ineligibility, and Bell went to the NFL.
Yep.
Can I give you a stat about Aiden O'Connell as well?
Yes, because how good of a quarterback is he actually? Oh, he throws for 500 yards. Yes. He's a great quarterback. Is he?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay.
He is. He is. And he is a kind of a, he changes the dynamic of this offense. Jonathan Sutherland and Tig Brown and James Franklin all talked about how aggressive this offense is. I wish every quarterback played like Aiden O'Connell.
Okay.
Because he does not care. He's going to throw the ball into any window.
With Manny Diaz's new defense?
Behind any middle linebacker's ear hole. He doesn't care. If that's the read, he's throwing the ball there. And you mentioned David Bell. He threw that ball up in 50-50. So if you're in certain coverages, the quarterback can see pre-snap whether or not it's going to be single coverage. And that's how you can avoid pressure on a deep play, is he'll just throw the ball up to David Bell because he knows it's one-on-one, and he doesn't care. He puts the ball in an area where that guy can go make a play. So with that in mind, do you know who, in PFF terms, led the Big Ten in big-time throws? C.J. Stroud, Talia Tagovailoa, or Aiden O'Connell?
My guess would naturally be C.J. Stroud, but based on this feels like
right. Your Honor, I'm leading the witness. Now, C.J. Stroud is obviously a talented player, but in terms of big time throws, 36 for Aiden O'Connell, 27 for the other two to lead the Big Ten. He was 7.8% of his throws are like those field flipping, really good down the field 17, 20 plus yard throws. He's the engine that makes them dangerous. So the question then becomes, because he'll throw it anywhere and he's not that guy, he's not C.J. Stroud, he will put the ball in danger. So if you're Kalen King and he throws the ball back shoulder on an out and that's not where it's supposed to be, you break on that ball, you'll get a pick six. So kind of like the same thing with Sean Clifford. We've seen him at times struggle and give the ball over. You can make that guy come out in Aiden O'Connell, but he was so much more positive than negative last year that he outweighed all of those mistakes because that aggressiveness does have two sides.
Yeah, the second side of it, I think the more important side, because you look at I can throw the ball up to Randy Moss, 6'6". He's going to go up there and get it. I throw the ball up to Jason. I throw the ball up to Zach Seyko. I'm not sure he's going to do the same thing. So I think that's where
Randy Moss.
Exactly. So you look at David Bell as opposed to a guy like Charlie Jones and Tyrone Tracy. You're not going to get the same result more often than not. That's where I think that two sides comes in. You have a quarterback that doesn't care. That means he doesn't overthink. I think that's a great sign. Yeah. That's huge. But the other part of it is you're susceptible to the turnover in a big way when you have a quarterback that just slings it wherever he feels like slinging it.
But the good thing is he will distribute the ball evenly. So he's not playing favorites with David Bell.
He's got a great tight end, too.
Exactly.
He certainly does.
There are some options out there, but he's not zeroing in on one guy. He's not throwing at David Bell just because it's David Bell. He's throwing at David Bell because that's the read, and you build a lot of plays around your best player. But he is willing to throw the ball across the field, so that's why James Franklin and Manny Diaz have talked all preseason about, hey, we need to be sound in our assignments. We can't make mistakes because they'll find it.
Predictions are almost on the way. We got to get through our injury report, even though Penn State doesn't put out a depth chart. And then we welcome in our celebrity guest, Aeneas Hawkins, former Penn State defensive lineman, a member of Limitless NIL with Sean Clifford. That's all coming up in just a moment. The injury report is next on 99.5 The Bus and State College's ESPN Radio.
Honor Penn State athletics military veterans with the opening of the new exhibit, I Am a Penn Stater, Nittany Lions in World War II at the Penn State All Sports Museum. I Am a Penn Stater chronicles the contributions these athletes made during the conflict, from their training to fighting on battlefields to their post-war occupations. Check out their letters, photographs, diaries, and artifacts today at the Penn State All Sports Museum, located at the southwest corner of Beaver Stadium. Go to psusports.com/museum or call 865-0044.
Hey, Penn State fans, recycling at your Beaver Stadium tailgate is as easy as blue and white.
Just remember to follow these simple instructions.
All plastic, glass bottles, and metal cans go into the blue bags, and paper and other trash items go into the clear white bags.
True Nittany Lion fans always leave their tailgate areas better than they found them.
Once again, when you're tailgating at Beaver Stadium, all glass bottles, metal cans, and plastic bottles go in the blue bags.
And all paper and trash items go in the clear bags.
Thanks for recycling from the Center County Recycling and Refuse Authority.
You're proud of your favorite team the way Lion Country Kia is proud of theirs. If you're ready to drive with pride, the LCK team is ready to help. Check out Lion Country Kia's huge selection of new Kias and the best selection of the area's top pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs. This season, for the best selection, the best service, and the best price on your next vehicle, see the team at the Lion Country Kia showroom on Driveville Street in State College and find out what the Lion Country Kia team is all about. We are Lion Country Kia.
It takes a special kind of person to thrive in elder care. Maybe that special person is you. If you're a nurse or medical industry professional, Center Care is hiring. And now's a great time for you to join their team. Applications are now being accepted for a variety of positions, many with sign-on bonuses. When you work with Center Care, you'll work with some of the best employees and healthcare administrators in Center County in a brand new, modern, state-of-the-art facility. View all open positions and apply today at centercare.org, an equal opportunity employer.
Now, back to the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show.
On ESPN Radio 103.7 and 99.5 The Bus.
Who's in and who's out? Let's take a look at the injury report. Sponsored by Stocker Chevrolet. Your new Chevy is waiting for you at Stocker Chevrolet. Home of the great guy and the Stocker Advantage. Stocker Chevrolet, 701 Benner Pike in State College.
Zach Seyko here. Alongside me is T. Frank, Thomas Frank Carr, and Jason Lord. Will be welcoming Aeneas Hawkins, our special guest, to pick winners and losers for this slate of college football games in just a moment. But quickly, the injury report, T. Frank. Who's in or out for Purdue?
Yeah, so I went through, and this is all from Monday from Jeff Brom's press conference. T. Denson, the cornerback for the Boilermakers, he's out for an extended period of time, not just this game. Branson Dean, Jalen Graham, we highlighted them in the previous segment. Both of them are going to play, but they are dealing with some injuries. Got nicked up in camp. They had to play them a little bit selectively throughout training camp. So that's something to monitor, is how they play in this game. And then a couple other guys, Brock Thompson, Jamari Brown, Corey Trice, all dealing with camp injuries. I believe they're all supposed to go, but some of those guys, I don't know if they're game time decisions. They are going to be, on the injury report heading into this game. So those are the names to know, and a lot of those guys are in the secondary. So a big problem for Purdue, given they were struggling there to begin with.
Yeah, Ron English, something we didn't mention, is in his first year as the defensive coordinator. Was co-defensive coordinator during the bowl game, but now is the full-time defensive coordinator going into this season. Has a head coaching past, but not a successful one. 11 wins, and I think over 45 losses, to put that into perspective. For Penn State, since James Franklin does not put out a depth chart, and I don't blame him. The idea of secrecy, and you want to hide as much from your opponent as you can. But from what we do know, Zariah Fisher suffered a season-ending injury. He is along the defensive line, will not play in this game. And just from what I've gathered around the grapevine is that with Drew Aller being promoted to quarterback number 2 is that Christian Veillere was dealing with a hush-hush injury. So I don't know how true that is to be. I think he's available for this game, and you hope you don't get there past Sean Clifford and Drew Aller. But that's just what I'm gathering. But we do know for a fact that Zariah Fisher is hurt. But until we kind of see the team on the field and who's playing and who's not dressed, we won't know a Penn State injury report, and that's kind of a week-by-week type of assessment.
If you do want the depth chart, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I put one together yesterday, did a whole show on it, so if you want to check it out there from what we've seen at camp. But, no official depth chart. Still breaks my heart.
No official injury report either, so all speculation. Well, we are going to get the inside scoop on Penn State, and what better way to do it than welcoming on former Penn State defensive lineman Aeneas Hawkins onto the show for our prediction segment. We're breaking out the crystal ball, giving you winners and losers, and hopefully we're not too far off with some of our picks. It's all right here on the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show on State College's ESPN Radio and 99.5 The Bus.
Did you know every year dozens of startups get their start with Ben Franklin Technology Partners? If you need funding to develop a new product, process, or software application, you need to know Ben Franklin. Our investment capital, business support services, and 10-week Techcelerator boot camps can help you get from startup to up and running. To learn more, visit cnp.benfranklin.org or phone the State College office at 814-863-4558. We invest in innovation.
Don't miss the Customer Appreciation Week sale September 12th through the 17th at Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center. Get 50% off all trees and 60% off shrubs and perennials. Perfect for all your last-minute fall landscaping projects. And if you need firewood, they can supply that too. Metzler Forest Products is your one-stop shop for everything outdoors. It's the Customer Appreciation Week sale September 12th through the 17th at Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center, 26 Timber Lane in Reedsville, and online at MetzlerForestProducts.com.
Hey, sports fans, did you bring cigars for your tailgate? We bet you didn't bring any handmade Nittany and Letterman cigars. Visit your cigar den in Monte Cristo Lounge in downtown State College. They have more than 400 cigar choices, including the popular line of handmade Nittany and Letterman cigars. Stop in and see for yourself why alumni from all over return to your cigar den each year and relive the spirit of their alma mater. Now open Sundays from noon to 5, your cigar den in Monte Cristo Lounge, 127 South Fraser Street on Calder Way behind the corner room downtown.
The Tavern Restaurant, located in downtown State College, has been a local tradition since 1948. Whether it's your first date or your first dinner out since the kids left home, visit us for an evening to remember. We recently completed an extensive renovation and have beautiful spaces perfect for celebrating those special moments with your special someone. The Tavern Restaurant is ready to help you make any occasion unforgettable. To make a reservation, call 814-238-6116 today. That's 814-238-6116.
Now, back to the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 99.5 The Bus. Break out the crystal ball. The guys will make their predictions for Penn State and today's college football games with the help of a celebrity guest. Hopefully, they aren't too far off. Sponsored by Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center. Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center in Reedsville is for all your landscaping and firewood needs. Get your project started by going online to MetzlerForestProducts.com.
And that celebrity guest is none other than former Penn State defensive lineman Aeneas Hawkins, a member of Limitless NIL with Sean Clifford. Aeneas, thank you so much for joining us. Jason Lord, Zach Seyko in studio, along with Thomas Frank Carr. T. Frank from Blue White Illustrated is prediction time. But first, Aeneas, you're going to be helping us out on broadcast as well, outside of the celebrity guest segment. You are going to be on our home coverage for all 7 games, pre- and post-game show, which we're very privileged to have you a part of. Your football knowledge, obviously, we can't even quantify because of the time you spent with Penn State. It runs in the family, of course. I always liked your uncle Andrew's personality, a very funny guy. And he does that podcast now with Joe Thomas, right?
He's doing the podcast with Joe Thomas, having fun with it. Joe Thomas is significantly funnier than him, in my opinion, but I enjoy it.
On the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns. But yeah, the privilege is all mine to be here working with pros like you guys. Excited.
Yeah, so you can, when you come to watch us outside of Beaver Stadium for home games, Aeneas Hawkins will be there as well. So how is everything going? You and I have talked about, and people else in the radio station, about Limitless NIL, but what's new with Limitless?
Yeah, so staying busy. We're up to 30 athletes that we have signed now, so just working with those guys, getting them ready, especially with football season coming up and really approaching quickly, making sure all of our ducks are in a row. But to be honest with you, this week I kind of strategically built my schedule to keep my Thursday light because I've been sitting here stressed and anxious all day about this Penn State football game, but things are going well. Sean obviously off playing quarterback now, so we're rolling on our own while he plays QB.
How involved is he when he's playing football like this?
Yeah, so we kind of built it out. I mean, strategically, again, just to make sure that he could focus on the main thing. Obviously, he's always going to have some level of interest in the baby that he kind of built. Mm-hmm. But, he does a good job of kind of cutting that switch off and focusing on being the leader of that football team. So unless it's a really, really big deal, we try not to hit Sean's phone about anything.
And he says that in select interviews and pressers, he says that Limitless has made him into a better quarterback. Would you back that statement up?
I would, because, when you're a student athlete, typically, you're doing your football responsibilities, you're doing school, but with that free time, you're typically not doing anything productive at all. So really all he's done is replace that free time he would have with business stuff.
Instead of playing Call of Duty?
Instead of playing Call of Duty and Fortnite with me, now we're doing Limitless.
You get $200 million contracts for doing that, right?
Yeah.
When you play out in Arizona. Former Penn State defensive tackle Aeneas Hawkins is with us in studio. All right, and we are going to hold ourselves accountable throughout the season. A running record between guests that we will have on week. I know, Jason, you just you're not excited about this.
This could be fun.
We have a dozen games to get through.
For entertainment purposes only being the key words here.
Oh, yes, we should have a legal disclaimer here. But we will start with the Backyard Brawl. For the first time in 11 years, the Panthers are hosting, the first time in general that they're back on the field together, but the Panthers are hosting the Mountaineers tonight, and 7.5 points, I think, is the spread. I think the total's 52 when I saw it. We're not picking spread. It's just straight up winners and losers, so it gets easier, Jason. And Aeneas, we'll go to you first every time, and then Jason and T. Frank, and then I'll give the last pick. Aeneas, who do you like in this game? Pitt's got a new quarterback. West Virginia does as well, but Pitt's got a better overall roster, so who wins?
Yeah, I'm a big backyard brawl guy. A lot of family that played at Pitt. But I'm going to go with West Virginia, man. I think people are sleeping on them. I think they're underestimating the loss of Kenny Pickett in that offense. I do think they're a talented roster. I think West Virginia has a lot of vets on defense that are going to show up, and I'm excited to watch that.
All right, Jason.
I think there's one bright side sometimes when your stars sit out of a bowl game. You get to see what you have to build into the following year. I thought Pitt played acceptable. I played pretty well in that loss to Michigan State last year in the bowl game. Lost Kenny Pickett, lost a lot of guys at key positions, but I think they're strong enough to win the backyard brawl. I'm going with Pitt here.
I have never seen a backyard brawl game, so I'm going to go with Aeneas because he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. We're going with West Virginia.
Surprise.
Pretty clear he's got the inside track on that, so I'm going with him.
And yes, folks, that is sarcasm. Aeneas, I agree. I'm going to go with Pitt. I think West Virginia makes this very close, but the roster was not that good. I heard that Pitt returned all 5 starters on the offensive line. Caden Slovis is an experienced veteran. They did lose Addison and the offensive coordinator, so it's low-scoring game. Pitt wins maybe something like 20-17, honestly, in my opinion. All right, Virginia Tech, Old Dominion. This is a battle of former Penn State coordinators, Ricky Ronnie at Old Dominion and Brent Pry at VT. This is feel good. Are you going to watch this one, Aeneas?
I'm definitely going to watch it because you got to think like that whole staff from 2018 to 2020 is coaching in these 2 games now. Yeah, so I'm going to go with VT. I think Pry shows up in his first appearance. I think that defense is going to be flying around, and those Virginia Techs are going to be hype about it.
Yeah, coaching debut, I think, here. You don't lose that coaching debut if you're Brent Pry. I go with Virginia Tech here. I think they're going to be a much better team this year. Morale is a lot bigger in Blacksburg right now.
I always go with the offensive guy. Sorry, Aeneas. When things are equal, right? And Ricky Ronnie's been there for a couple years now. He's got his system down. Brent Pry.
I was thinking the same thing.
This is his first game there. How much of his culture has he installed yet? I don't know. But I'm still going with Virginia Tech. Just overwhelmingly, it's Virginia Tech and Old Dominion, and I don't want to diminish what Ricky Ronnie's doing there, but just the level and quality of athletes and the what he's bringing. Kind of what he's already got there at Virginia Tech is what I'm banking on in this one.
They pulled in Grant Wells from the transfer portal. I went to Marshall, where Charles Huff is coaching. Zach Kuntz is in this game at tight end. There's a lot to love about this game. I'm going to go with Brent Pry and Virginia Tech because they're in the ACC. Old Dominion is not. Let's get to an interesting out-of-conference game. UNC versus App State. UNC's only a 1-point favorite against a MAC team. Aeneas, where's your read on this one?
I mean, here's my thing. I remember App State coming up here in 2018. I remember that experience. I remember how much of an airline
overtime.
They are known to show up in that week 1 game and go give the team that they're playing a run for their money. I think they get it done at UNC. That is my upset pick of the week.
Ooh. New coaching staff since we've seen App State. They pull those upsets, though, in 2007 and then nearly here in 2018. I think UNC wins this game. I like UNC in this spot. App State's nothing to sleep on. I think everybody knows that by now. And that's why UNC wins this game.
I was not a huge fan of the offense that devolved into last year for UNC, where they basically had kind of just an option offense with Sam Howell. Once they lost Javonte Williams and some of those receivers, I think that the whole offense kind of pivoted to be a little bit more basic. But I'm going to go with UNC. I'm going to go with chalk again because I'm a coward.
I'll go with UNC. I like the new sophomore quarterback. Mac Brown's been there for a few years and trying to build something special again with the Tar Heels. Let's jump to Georgia and Oregon, number 3 versus number 11, the national championship winner. Oregon gets Bo Nix. Georgia's a 17-point favorite, so I feel like we're going to go Georgia all across the board here. Aeneas?
I'm going to go Georgia, but I think 17 points might be a little bit lofty. They lost a lot to the draft, man. I don't care who you are. It's tough to replace all of that, and Oregon plays tough, man. We've seen how they operated the last couple of years.
I think Oregon's got to replace a lot, and I think Patrick Nix is going to be looking over his shoulder quite a bit because they obviously have a highly touted freshman quarterback there as well. I like Georgia in this game, defending national champions in this spot. Not sure they get it done by 17, but I do think they win this game by more than 7 points.
Georgia lost a lot, yes, but Oregon gained Bo Nix. which is a huge problem for Oregon. So I'm going with Georgia. I can't watch Bo Nix play another game. I just can't do it.
Quick release, but where does the ball go? I think that's the thing when you look at
in the ground.
That's what you've seen.
He has the best pocket presence I've ever seen from a high school quarterback.
So inconsistent.
All right, I'm going to go with Georgia too. Two more games before Penn State and Purdue, which we will finish with. Florida and Utah. Utah was an even favorite. Now they're 3 points. Some people have them going to the college football playoff. Do they get it done in the swamp, Aeneas?
I'm going to rock with Utah. I think Utah is going to establish that run game. I think they're going to dominate up front.
The swamp is not what it once was. Not that hostile, extreme environment that it used to be in the early '90s, and the early 2000s. But I like Utah in this game. They always seem to play well week one. You look at what they did with Jim Harbaugh's debut at Michigan, came to play there. I think this is a Utah team that gets it done in the swamp.
I need you to send the audio file this to me later, because go Utes. My wife, she's a Utah Ute. My whole in-laws, they live in Salt Lake City. And this is an awesome staff. These guys produce on the defensive line, the secondary. They have a great running game. I love their head coach. This is a great team. I used to compare them to Minnesota. I think I'm bumping them up. They're a Big Ten team. They're getting closer to more of a Michigan in terms of established power in the Pac-12. So this is a good football team. It's definitely going to be Utah winning here.
All right, I'm going to go with Utah as well because, especially from what I've heard from other quote-unquote experts, that they are in or around the college football playoff conversation. Florida is not. I think they will win convincingly. Ohio State, Notre Dame, this is another case of big bank takes little bank or big fish eats little fish here. Ohio State is a 17-point favorite. Notre Dame has changed over a quarterback. I don't think we're going to have any guesses here who wins.
Yeah, I'm going Ohio State. As much as I like Marcus Freeman, I think he needs a couple of years to instill that culture, bring in his guys to be successful. I do think it's a closer game than people may be anticipating, but C.J. Stroud returning and some of the other guys they have coming back is just going to be too much for him.
Yeah, if you're Marcus Freeman, you got to embrace the underdog role here. You're 17.5-point underdog. That's what has to be the message, because you look at Ohio State, there's just not – it's hard to find a weakness on this team. Ohio State wins this game, I think, convincingly.
Yeah, I agree. I think Marcus Freeman is great, but Ohio State's overwhelming here.
Yep, I agree with all of you. Ohio State wins at home in Columbus. Tickets are $250 plus if you want to go. Penn State, Purdue, what we've all been waiting for, and coverage coming up from the network at 6:30. So we got to go quick. But the Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite. Total set around 52-53. I want score predictions here too. Aeneas, you're friends with all those guys still. Former player at Penn State. Who wins and what is your score?
I've given this a lot of thought. Obviously, I'm going to go with Penn State here. I think the roster is just too much for Purdue to handle. They both have 6-year quarterbacks that are in similar situations. But I think what you're going to see tonight is the play up front for Penn State kind of taking over. I think that offensive line is greatly improved to people's surprise. And I think that defensive line, the return of Adisa Isaac, Hakeem Beamon, it'll be a revived pass rush that people are going to see.
Yeah, Jeff Brom often gets his team ready to go for week one. I think he'll be prepared and ready to go, but I think they're susceptible to the big play. That's where Penn State beats them tonight. I like Penn State 34-17.
We're giving scores. Let me go 42-21. I don't want that to be missed.
I'm going to go 34-28. I just think that Penn State, Purdue, they lost too much. The secondary isn't good. They haven't replenished their pass rush. Scotty Humpich, just throwing that name out there for them. Watch out for him. He might be a guy that can help them.
I'm going to go Penn State 34, Purdue 24. We have quick keys to the game coming up next. Aeneas, thank you so much for your time here on the prediction segment. We'll be back in just a moment here on 99.5 The Bus and ESPN Radio.
Hi, I'm Matt Nobby, General Manager of Bobby Rahal Honda of State College. Football season is back, and just like your favorite team, we like to win. Our goal is to win your trust with an honest, hassle-free car buying experience. And with our superior service after the sale, we hope to win you as a customer for life. Stop by our showroom on West College Avenue and get a win of your own with a great new Honda car, truck, van, or SUV. Or browse our selection of new and used vehicles online at BobbyRahal.com.
The interior of Beer Belly's beverage is no 5-bedroom colonial, no man cave or private bath with built-in bookcase here. It's more, much more. If you could live here, you'd jump faster than the yellow lab attacking your last chicken wing. Some addresses have prestige. This address has prestige and beer. But unless you're one of the more than 500 labels we carry every day, you'll just have to sleep on the porch. Beer Belly's beverage. It's where beer lives. Find us on Facebook or visit beerliveshere.com.
Now, back to the Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate Show on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 99.5 The Bus. What's it going to take to win the game?
Let's find out by looking at today's key matchups. Sponsored by your Cigar Den and Monte Cristo Lounge.
State College's source for premium cigars, pipes, tobacco, and accessories with 2 smoking lounges and the home of the Nittany Blue and White Cigars, 127 South Fraser Street in State College.
All right, quick keys to win because we also have to get to around the Big Ten and talk about some of those games in under 2 minutes here. Jason, what is your key to win for both Penn State and Purdue?
Key to Purdue, obviously, is to keep this game as low scoring as you can keep it. They're going to air the ball out. They're going to try to score at a high rate. Yeah, Penn State can get the big play on this cover zero defense. For Purdue, keep it low scoring as much as you possibly can. For Penn State, I think it's very clear as day. Protect up front. I think if you're able to do that, you give Sean Clifford time to throw, you could pick apart this Purdue team.
Don't make this a battle of 6th-year quarterbacks if you're Penn State. Play a complete game, have a running game, have a defense. Then you don't have to put everything on the right arm of Clifford because if it's a duel of those two, so far, Aiden O'Connell has proven to be the better quarterback. And then on the flip side, I disagree. I think you got to unleash Aiden O'Connell. Let him win or lose the game. Throw some interceptions, don't care, throw the ball again, throw it deep. I don't know that Penn State has a pass rush yet.
I think there will be a lot of points in this game, and I know the total keeps moving down, but I think it's just there a lot of changes on defense for both sides, reassuring offenses. You're going to see some points. All right, Around the Big Ten is sponsored by Center Care, Inc. When you work at Center Care, you'll work with some of the best employees and healthcare administrators in Center County in a modern state-of-the-art facility. Apply today at centercare.org. Another Big Ten game tonight. Minnesota's actually playing New Mexico State to open the season. Indiana, Illinois is opening up Big Ten play over the weekend. And don't forget, we're going to recap it all in the post-game show. T. Frank, thanks so much for joining us on the pre-game show. Jason, you and I are back with post-game after dark here on 99.5 The Bus and ESPN Radio State College.
Thanks for listening to the Penn State Tailgate Show, sponsored by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. Up next, Steve Jones, Jack Ham, Brian Tripp, and Roger Corey take you through their preview of the Nittany Lions on your home for Penn State football.
ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450 WQWK State College and 99.5 The Bus WBUS Center Hall.